We begin with a battle already in progress. A city under attack. A fighter jet with 2 occupants is in the air. Pilot Tyler Frost is giving his good friend a ride back to the airbase when a message comes over the radio.
Viper 2, this is Central Command. Come in.
Central, this is Viper 2. What can we do for you?
Frosting, we got some funny radar coming in from the northeast of you. Possible bogeys requesting intercept.
Understood, Central. We're on our way. Apologizing to his passenger, Frosting changes directions and heads towards the fight. Off to the northeast, a fighter jet is heading directly for Frost and his passenger full speed ahead. Frosting sees the enemy jet on his radar and asks his passenger/co-pilot if he can get a fix on the bogey. After getting a fix on the target, they get a visual and they see that it's one of their own. As they fly by each other, the mystery jet takes a shot at the 2 pilots. After some evasive maneuvers and some expert flying, Frosting gets a lock on the target. He's just about to fire, and then the jet transforms into a giant robot, and before Frosting can react, the robot open hand slaps the jet, sending it into a tailspin. Frosting struggles to find the ejection lever, but after some encouragement from his passenger, he's able to pull it, and both passengers shoot out the top of the spiraling jet, only for pilot Tyler Frost to find himself staring face to face with a giant robot. The robot, looking Frost in the eye, says, "Hi," and then claps both hands together into a splat, ending pilot Tyler Frost's life. Meanwhile, the second passenger looks on in horror as his parachute carries him away. He screams, "No!" as he watches the psychotic robot happily squish his friend, and getting the robot's attention while doing so. The bloodthirsty robot tries to make his way to the parachuting passenger when the passenger hits a switch, causing the parachute to break away and wings to shoot out from his backpack to reveal a jetpack. As the robot reaches out to grab the jetpacked passenger, he pulls his sidearm and shoots the robot in the eye as he escapes to safety. As the passenger flies off, we see his code name, Duke. We open up to see flashbacks of Duke going through boot camp. Then we see him leading a squad into battle, and then providing aid to a foreign country. As we see the brief glimpses of Duke's past, we hear a voice talking in the background about Duke's past efforts. Even in boot camp, it was clear you had the right stuff. Top of your class, exceeded all expectations, a leader on the battlefield and off. Countless successful extractions and rescue missions with 0 collateral damage. From day 1, it's been clear that you are a man of action. You turned down every promotion opportunity. Some think you're nothing but a career grunt, but I know better. You believe your place is not in the command room, but in the trenches with the troops. You are one of the finest assets produced by the United States of America. We find Duke sitting in a dark office, looking disheveled. His buzz cut starting to grow out over his ears and his 5 o'clock shadow showing he's in need of a shave. Sitting across the desk, Colonel Hawk tells Duke that despite all the issues, his country needs him back. All he has to do is 2 things: pass a psyche eval and stop asking questions. Duke tells him, "With all due respect, Colonel Hawk, I saw what I saw." Hawk snaps back and tells him he's been given the answers and that he's turning into a walking American nightmare. With flashbacks of Tyler Frost ejecting from the plane running through his head, Duke screams, "You weren't there!" Duke, reliving the whole episode in his head, starts explaining exactly what he saw, the plane that looked like one of their own, but then he stops. He starts speaking about his history with Frost and how he had a family and that he was the only reason he was even in the sky because he was doing him a favor. As he's telling Hawk, Duke relives the moment in his head, watching the robot kill his friend while he tries to avoid being next. He tells Hawk, whatever that thing was, it snuffed out Frosting's life like he was nothing, and it enjoyed it. Colonel Hawk tells Duke it was an accident and that the family was taken care of, and Duke says, with lies. Hawk, reaching his breaking point, tells Duke that he's not ready to come back and to take some time off. He tells him to go get his head right and then come back. Duke responds by asking about the black box files from the jet, but Hawk says they're classified. Duke says they're garbage while smashing a chair against the wall. Storming out the door, Duke tells Hawk he's done his best to follow every order, but right now his country is lying to him. On his way out the door, he says, I'm getting answers and I will know what that flying robot is, and I'm taking it out. Fast forward to 6 months later, and we find our hero in Washington, D.C. His face is scruffy with a beard, and his hair is grown out over his ears. We see a stack of unusual books and magazines on the seat next to him as he drives. UFO, ESP, books on peculiarities. As he enters a residential area, Duke pulls up to a big house and enters. Inside, a large group of people are socializing. Everyone's talking about trucks that turn into robots or secret societies, or alien abductions. Duke overhears the conversations around him and sighs to himself. This was a mistake. Just then, a female appears and asks if he's leaving so soon. Duke turns and shakes hands as he greets Dr. Adele Burkhart. Duke tells the doctor that this wasn't quite what he was expecting, and the doctor explains it's easier to hide the truth among the ridiculous as she shows Duke into her office. She turns on an old switch with a loud clack and tells him she finds it best to be as low-tech as possible. She then goes on to tell him she's dedicated many years of her life to finding a new clean energy source and that she believes it will be found in the stars. She explains that when the universe was created with the Big Bang, elements of that explosion scattered across all of creation, and that some of that cosmic space dust was still on the Earth and it needed to be found and utilized. Once she started getting close, the people she worked for thought she started asking too many questions about their plans for the space dust, and after she left, they shut down the entire project and destroyed her life's work as if it never existed. She points to some blueprints for a weapon hanging on the wall and explains that if anyone ever captured the power of the cosmic space dust and used it for war, the consequences would be devastating. A creation of new weapons the world has ever seen. She calls the technology the new apple from the tree of knowledge, and there's a snake waiting for someone to take a bite. Duke responds by telling her that he thought he'd seen it all in the service, but then he saw a giant robot in the sky. Everyone thought he was crazy for it, and it made him question everything. But Dr. Burkhart gave him hope that he wasn't crazy. She tells him that's why she reached out. She thinks Duke may have stumbled onto a high-tech arms race, and the company behind it, Mars Industry, a family-run company who are incredibly secret and have made it impossible to see what's going on inside. Duke tells Dr. Burkhart he's extracted people from the world's most dangerous war zones, and maybe he'll have better luck seeing what's going on inside a stuffy corporate office. Next, we see Duke sneaking in a dark tunnel beneath Mars Industries' corporate office. He finds an electrical box and does some surgery on the wires, turning off the alarm system, sneaking his way through the building and utilizing air vents and elevator shafts. Duke deactivates the security camera and stealthily sneaks past a pair of guards and makes his way up a set of stairs. There, he finds what he came here for. Well, I'll be damned, Duke says to himself as he sees an enormous warehouse filled with the latest in weapons technology, single-person helicopters, innovative-looking tanks, and then Duke sees it, a pair of workers working on a robot-looking mech suit. Duke immediately flashes back to the giant robot reaching out for his late friend Tyler Frost and utters, "I knew it!" Right then, Duke is grabbed by an enormous hand by the back of his neck and tells Duke, "You don't know shit." Before the big man can react, Duke wheels around, knocking his hand off of him and full force headbutts the brute, breaking his nose. Nose bleeding, looking less than impressed, the big man throws a right cross, a left hook, and then a big right hook. Duke slips the right cross, blocks both hooks, and then counters with a big right hook of his own. While landing the punch, Duke grabs a right arm and tosses the man over his shoulder up against the window. Duke tells the man, "Stay down, soldier," as the big man is getting up. But then Duke is restrained by an entire platoon of soldiers wearing helmets and body armor, and all of them armed with a baton. The crowd swarm Duke, and he's pummeled by the large brute as they pull him away and drag him outside. As Duke is being drugged/carried off the property, he screams, "You built it! I knew it!" The guards call him a nut job as he's thrown off the property. They tell him he's lucky if the only thing they do is call the cops, and one of the soldiers tells him, "Easy, Mercer, just let him go." Mercer argues with the boss that Duke has seen too much and to let him kill him now, but his boss tells him to calm down. We shift to a dark room where a man, watching from afar, sits in the shadows of his lair, looking at two giant displays. He explains to his subordinate that if his family killed everyone poking around their business, they would have gone under centuries ago, and that they're not the only ones keeping an eye on Duke, and that if he were to disappear or die, it would draw too much attention on their operation. As the man stares at the two displays, one with Duke's file and the other showing Dr. Burkhart's file, the man tells Mercer there are other ways to deal with their curious friend. Getting back to Duke, we see him walking back in the neighborhood where Dr. Burkhart was hosting her gathering. As Duke walks through the neighborhood, he's talking to someone on the phone. He tells the person on the other end he saw proof, was caught breaking into a major military-industrial headquarters, and was never asked for his ID, and they just let him walk away. As Duke finishes what he's saying, he tells the other party to call him fallen back. As he reaches Dr. Burkhart's, he can see that the door has been smashed in. As he approaches, he realizes his worst nightmare. Everyone there has been shot dead. Bodies riddled with bullets lie everywhere. Then, from the bodies, he hears someone call out to him by his real name, Conrad. Dr. Burkhart drags herself into the light, bloodied and filled with bullet holes. She tells him that she was right, and that a man who claimed to be a believer from Australia had stole all of her research, but he missed one thing. Dr. Burkhart hands Duke a piece of technology looking similar to a cell phone. Duke tells Dr. Burkhart to save it. They have to get her to a hospital, but she tells him it's too late, and that it can't fall into the wrong hands. With her dying breath, she tells Duke to find the truth. Right as Duke takes the item from Dr. Burkhart's dying hand, a large group of police, all in riot gear, tell Duke to freeze as they fill the room. Duke throws his arms in the air and tells them he's unarmed and they're on the same side, but before he can show them his ID, the entire squad open fire on him. Duke makes a run for it, taking fire in every direction. He makes his way up a staircase and then moves across the room towards a window. While still taking fire, Duke crashes out the second-story window. By the time his adversaries make their way to the open window, there's no sign of him. Not far from the crime scene, we see Duke limping down an abandoned alley. Though he's wounded and bleeding, he's able to disappear without a trace. We find Colonel Hawk on the phone as he makes his way towards his chopper. He tells the person on the other end that Duke was on a mission and nothing will get in his way. He lets them know that this mess was his and he'll clean it up as he hangs up the phone. He turns and tells the woman next to him, who he calls Krieger, that Duke has gone rogue. Civilian lives have been taken and now Duke's on the run. Krieger reminds him that Duke is one of the best and finding him will be impossible. Hawk says, not if they bring in the best to hunt him down. If you want to track an American hero, we get American heroes. There, we see file photos of G.I. Joe's Stalker and Rock and Roll. Next, Man on the Run.